when we look at the difficulty of what is happening, all of us, as Richard has said, recent bombings, there's violence in the city in terms of among the youth and many other places is very, very disturbing, and it is very real. And I think for a lot of us, there's not only fear, but there's a level of deep anxiety about the future. So I feel like whether we think about this consciously or not, it's sort of part of our environment. And obviously just watching the news, it's full of these kinds of things. And so there's just an atmosphere of us having to consciously or unconsciously think about who we are and what we're doing and what the future is. So I feel like part of this really right now, even though there's very important social issues, environmental issues, economic issues, but I feel like a fundamental issue or an essential issue is the issue of how we regard human nature. And I feel like, in a sense, that is the most important global issue in terms of how do we actually think about ourselves. And this is, I think, something I invite you to think about. It's something that I've thought about. And it doesn't really matter in a sense of what spiritual tradition or non-spiritual tradition we come from, but how do we regard ourselves? And the transmission that I have received and thought about is that humanity is basically good, and by good it means complete. And the notion of without faults, and I think another word that I've been using and playing around with is really a sense of worthiness, that we are worthy. And there's a sense of personal dignity. And this is a very personal issue. And I think it's an issue that it's almost subliminal, because we're living in a culture where there is a lot of guilt, there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of reason to validate our life. And so the notion of basic goodness or the sense of fundamental goodness, on the surface we think, well, what about all the bad things going on? How do you explain that? And the journey that I want to take you on is that this notion of basic goodness that my father and his generation experienced and talked about wasn't just sort of a drummed up New Age thing. So I always